You should always be recruiting and you should always be developing your people. And I think, the numbers will speak for themselves. If you can develop a pipeline of candidates and keep them engaged and they want to work for your company when there is an opening, you're going to be just that much far ahead.
Hello there. This is John Bernatovich, your host of the HR Like a Boss podcast. Thank you for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. I've embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals, and I'm trying to understand what it takes to do HR like a boss. On today's show, I am so excited to have Lisa Dean Mamula joining me. I had to add the Dean because a lot of people know Lisa as Lisa Dean. That's when I first met her back a number of years when she worked at THRD. And eventually we were lucky enough to acquire the firm. And the story that I've stuck with all along is by far the number one asset and the greatest part of acquiring THRD was being able to work with Lisa and her professionalism, her expertise in the field of HR and staffing, and just a generally great person. So welcome, Lisa, to the HR Like a Boss podcast.
Thanks, John. I'm happy to be here and happy to be a small part on this journey you've embarked on.
Do you mind taking a minute and just sharing a little bit about your background and what you're up to these days?
Sure. Yes. So my role here at Willory is the director of staffing. I focus in the temporary and direct hire search for HR and payroll professionals. And we support, obviously, Willory as a whole and the consulting group. So I, as John mentioned, joined the organization through an acquisition, and it probably was the smoothest, easiest transition ever, and got to continue to work and serve the HR community in Northeast Ohio. So it's been great, great run.
And I do ask the first question, always is the same for every podcast guest, Lisa, and it's trying to get an understanding of how you would describe the purpose of human resources.
I would describe the purpose of human resources is really to develop and execute on an organization's people strategy and really ensure that that's aligned with the company's business objectives. And you could probably ask that question 100 times and get a different answer because HR wears so many different hats. And HR has certainly been challenged in the last couple of years with responding to the biggest disruption to employees in probably all of our lifetimes. They really now have to look at the people holistically and ensure that all of their needs are met.
You've been doing this just for a few years, not too long, and you've probably seen a lot of things happen over that short period of time, especially with COVID and going through the acquisition that you talked about. And I'm curious as to what are some of the top trends that you're seeing that are impacting the clients that you serve in our staffing business every day?
Yes, I see three trends that are impacting most of our clients right now. I mean, obviously there's the war on talent, and everybody is asking, where did all the people go? I think the people are out there. I think the problem is that everybody is vying for the same talent at the same time. I think there's ongoing transitions with great resignation, and there are some skill gaps in the market. And also recruiters are just above capacity to effectively manage the open positions. So I see that trend continuing along with compensation structures. Companies have had to pay a premium to attract talent. This has caused internal equity issues and this demand for total rewards and comp professionals to come in. Companies need to evaluate the competitiveness of their wage and salary structures. And that coupled with higher inflation than we've seen in years has really led to companies increasing their prices on their goods and services. In addition to, the recruiting and the comp, we've seen an increased demand for OD and training and development professionals. Companies are looking at their succession plans and identifying where they're at risk, where there's gaps. And they're also looking at beefing up their training programs, not only to, train their their team members, but also to engage them and retain them.
All right, Lisa. So tell me a little bit more. I'm curious from a trend standpoint, and we talked about those three areas. Can you share a little bit of like innovations, things that maybe employers can do that they can try to buck that comp challenge, that recruiting war on talent issue, the training and develop riddle that you mentioned? What do you think they could be doing to do it a little differently, a little better?
Yes, so I think innovation is the key across the board, and probably starts with, employee engagement is huge right now. Employees aren't engaged. They've been through a lot. So I would say first and foremost, survey your employees to understand what they need and want. I would also say walk the walk when it comes to your company culture. I've talked to many candidates that have made transitions during all this movement, and 3 months into a new job, they're realizing that the company isn't necessarily what they were sold on, and they're looking to make a move again. And right now is a perfect opportunity to do that. I think employee referral programs and networking is also huge. I personally have an initiative to create a more formal employee referral program. And I will share here, I have a pretty awesome team, and our most recent hire came as a referral through our professional network. And she has since referred our next hire. So trust your A players to refer A players. I think you need to also think outside the box and really, if you find someone that is a cultural fit and they can be trained up, there's some great candidates out there. We've had clients come to us that have had searches open for 6 to 12 months, and they're not ready to flex on not having someone that checks all the boxes. So I think there's an opportunity there. And I agree with you, John, there's an opportunity, and I think lessons learned. Let's not cut talent acquisition and talent development the minute there's an economic downturn, because I agree, you should always be recruiting and you should always be developing your people. And I think, the numbers will speak for themselves. If you can develop a pipeline of candidates and keep them engaged and they want to work for your company when there is an opening, you're going to be just that much far ahead.
The book is all around amazingly awesome HR. And I get all the guests that I have on the show out of here with the very last question. So Lisa, I'm curious, how would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
I would describe someone that does HR like a boss in the same way I would describe the qualities in any profession, integrity, innovation, empathy, respect. I mean, those are traits you would expect any leader to have, and HR is no exception. And I'll close with, I'm very fortunate in my role that I get to work with a lot of HR bosses out there across many organizations. And I'm so impressed when they come to a job order intake call and we talk about everything except what's on the job description. I mean, they come and they share what their organization is doing, their strategies, their objectives, their priorities. I mean, that's really their culture. I mean, those are the types of things that are really going to be helpful for me in finding and aligning the right people to fit their open positions. So I would say that's an HR summary of an HR boss.
You were a great guest on the show. Super excited to have had you. Hopefully you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you for checking out the HR Like a Boss podcast. If it resonates with you, please consider leaving a rating and review. And better yet, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.